Hola and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who's done all his World Cup Group B research. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello, I have now. I wasn't sure that hola was how you say hello in Portuguese, but it turns out it is, so now we're totally covered.
We're covered for Portugal and Spain with the hello.
Yes.
Yes. Today's teams are Portugal, Spain, Morocco and Iran. That is your World Cup Group B.
Yes.
Before we get into the preview, team by team, we're going to go into detail, as we've promised, as we did for Group A. I want to say there's been no better time in human history to do World Cup team-by-team research, because YouTube is full of not quite legal but very high-quality replays of entire matches.
This is true.
Right? You want to watch Morocco, Ivory Coast? You can just go do that.
Now, if you want to watch individual footage of a player, I would say don't do that, because YouTube maybe shows you their best moments, if not how they actually play moments.
Yeah, highlight reels can be very misleading.
He's going to score all the goals.
Yeah, this guy cannot miss in the highlight reels. Yeah, but that's why I like watching entire games, to get a good feel for exactly sort of what a player does throughout a game.
I always enjoy the individual highlight reels when we get to the part where I was like, that's not him who scored that. Oh, we've moved to assists. Now we've moved to the part where he's providing assists in the highlight reel.
This should be transition titles, right?
You would think so.
We're doing. Yeah. Okay. Are you ready to get going on World Cup
indeed.
Group B? If you've enjoyed our World Cup previews, remember they're all found at totalsoccershow.com/World Cup, all one word. Please share that URL with your friends who don't understand podcasts. Your friends that do understand podcasts, let them know to subscribe to the Total Soccer Show via iTunes or Stitcher, Google Play, Pocket Casts, any podcatcher that you can think of.
All right. So with that said, Portugal up first?
Portugal up first. That's how they did the draw. Okay, the way we like to do this, thanks to Winston Rivas, who gave us this idea on Twitter, we like to go actual team nickname of Portugal, followed by what we think the team nickname should be. I've talked a lot in the intro, Taylor. I'm going to turn it over to you, sir.
All right, I'll be talking plenty in this show, though. Their real nickname, A Seleção das Quinhas, which translates to selection of the Quinhas, which I guess is the crest.
Yeah.
It's mostly like the selection, same thing as Brazil have. And then also the navigators, because of their history of exploration.
There we go. But what do you think it should be?
The flipped house.
Excuse me, what?
The flipped house.
The flipped house? As in like when you buy a property low and sell it high and you add a kitchen in between?
There it is. You add
granite countertops.
You add cosmetic changes to make it prettier, but maybe you don't necessarily deal with major issues and hope that maybe they don't get caught. That seems to be maybe the way some people approach flipping houses.
Side note, never buy a flipped house from Taylor.
I mean, you will never have to, because I don't think I'm crafty enough to figure out how to do those cosmetic changes.
So tell me why they're a flipped house.
Because from my research, we'll get into this, I'm sure, I feel like Portugal added strong attackers and midfielders into this team that basically we know is the reigning European champions. But I think a lot of the underlying issues that either existed with that 2016 team or have kind of come about since then haven't necessarily been dealt with. So they look very good. They're the reigning champions. They've got lots of attacking talent.
Yeah.
But maybe they don't have the foundation you would like or the insulation that you would like.
So it'd be listed on Zillow as like, buy this Euro 2016 winning house.
Yes, exactly. With new granite countertops. You got it.
So maybe we should explain this to people a little bit, because if you're coming in fresh to this, Euro 2016 champions, you would think if you won the Euros, that means you were kind of the finished article.
Yep.
That wasn't really the case at Euro 2016, right?
No, because you think about teams that win titles, like you go back to the France 98 team and like how all-conquering they looked, or Brazil teams when they win the World Cup, and they almost always like, oh, they drew one game, everybody else, and you kind of get this
Germany
idea.
2014 is good.
That's what your champion is going to be, whereas in reality, you can have teams like Portugal who, in the group stage, 3 games, 3 draws, only went through as a third-place team, the first time that had been happening at the Euros, so or at least in a while.
There was some luck involved in Portugal winning Euro 2016.
Absolutely.
But also the plan worked. I'll get into that a little bit maybe on my part.
Sure.
So please continue with the flipped house analogy, though.
I mean,
like, what are the cosmetic changes? Because they haven't actually added a granite countertop, right? That would be tough to carry around Russia.
Yes, exactly. So you have, so like Bernardo Silva, I would say, for example, is in much better form with Man City in his professional career than, say, Nani was in 2016. I think you have...
No Nani, by the way. If you're looking for Nani, he made the preliminary roster.
He sure did.
He didn't make the final 23.
He did not.
It was not a huge surprise. It was not expected.
Yeah, and so this is, thank you for that, because worth noting, 10 players from that Euro 16 squad not in this team, in this 23-man roster.
They dangled the possibility in front of Euro 2016 final goal scorer Eder.
It seems like they did.
Preliminary roster, but he was never making it, right?
Eder, Nani, Danilo, Andre Gomes, Renato Sanchez, many other names.
Renato Sanchez.
Yes, and then not included like some potential youngsters would be Ruben Neves and Nelson Semedo.
I don't want to talk about Ruben Neves.
Well, I think we kind of have to because he is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. That while you have young, we'll get to these guys later, but like young attackers who all look very exciting, and I want to see all of them play. Like in your interview with Thiago that you did about a month ago, he pointed out like, oh, well, they have to have somebody else to play for William Carvalho. If he can't play, if he gets hurt, they need a backup. They need somebody to play alongside him if they're trying to see the game out. It probably won't be Danilo, so it will probably be Ruben Neves, but it could be either one. Instead, it's neither of them. And they don't have that backup option. They have players who could theoretically be there.
I think they do. They just have guys who are not as sort of pleasing on the eye as Ruben Neves.
Well, yeah. And then you look at their defense, which everybody has pointed out. Their three of their four center backs have a combined age of 115.
Yes, leave that to me. That comes into my nickname.
So that's what I am kind of concerned about for Portugal.
Fair enough. Oh, is it me already? Okay, so as we said, they are Seleção das Quinas, but I believe the team nickname should be the Portuguese Old Men of War. So first of all, are you familiar
the Man of War? Yeah.
With the Man of War? Yeah, it's sort of like a jellyfish looking thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, floats around the water, stings you all that.
Mm-hmm.
So the Portuguese Man of War is kind of ugly, right? It's not an attractive looking thing.
I think you could extend that to all jellyfish, but yeah, sure.
Fair.
I think they can be a little mesmerizing underwater.
Yeah, all right. But if you see it coming, you're like, oh, I don't like the look of this.
No.
But it also has a venomous sting. And I think that really describes Portugal. They're not going to be attractive to watch for reasons we'll get into, right? I'm assuming we both have details on Portugal's style of play, which is very similar to Euro 2016. So not attractive to look at, but venomous sting in the form of Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yep.
Also, it's made of an actual Man of War. I did not know this. Portuguese Man of War is actually multiple individual organisms that have to work together to survive. They can't really survive independently. They all have to work together as if they were one organism, but they're different organisms. That is what is going on with this Portugal team.
I mean, is that not just a team, period?
Especially Portugal, because of, I'm tying this all together thematically, the actual Old Men of War are the defenders.
Yep.
Right? It's Bruno Alves is 36, centre-back, played 20 games for Rangers last season, not quite the height of his powers.
That's much.
Pepe is playing for Besiktas, so he's still at a decent, still not Real Madrid level, decent level, but he's 35.
And still doing Pepe things.
And still doing Pepe.
Getting sent off in the all-important derby of the season would be a good indicator of what he's still doing.
But he's still aggressive and wonderful and will knock you over, and he's perfectly happy to be the meanest man in the world if it means he can win the ball.
Sure.
Right? But he's not a young man anymore. But don't worry, they've got backup Jose Font, who is 34.
Yeah.
And plays in China for Dalian Yifang. I believe he used to play for Southampton. He now plays in the Chinese league.
After a season that did not go so well at West Ham.
And so these older gentlemen who are playing centre-back, essentially, ever since Euro 2016, including Euro 2016, the style of Portuguese play has been to protect these guys from being exposed, essentially, right? They'll win balls in the air, they're fine in one-on-one tackles, but they do not want to be left 1v1 or 2v2 in the back. And so you have a very conservative Portugal team that plays basically, I want to call it a 4-1-3-2, where all those four midfielders, the 1 and the 3, pretty much stay central. Yeah. They don't really get wide. They make sure that the middle is completely boxed in. They don't get spread out. And I think it's by protecting the old man centre-backs, keeping the midfielders a bit more conservative. The Portuguese Old Man of War works. Yeah. It all works together to survive and even thrive, and uses its Cristiano Ronaldo venomous sting sometimes. But it's not going to be pretty to look at
until it washes up on shore and dies. Because I'm still not sure what to make of this Portugal team. So you're right. I would say a 4-1-3-2.
Don't prod it if it does.
Yeah, exactly. Is like. I have that down on paper as well, but if you go back and look at 2016, it really is a full 4-2 diamond. Like, that's essentially, they're so narrow and their midfielders are tucked inside. They've got the one anchoring the base. They've got the one more attacking player. But yeah, you're right.
But not that much more attacking is the difference, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So you really are going to block off the middle. And that's where I'm totally with you, that I think people might look at Portugal, and I think you're going to get a lot of, like, they've got, Cristiano Ronaldos, and they've got lots of other really exciting, like, you're not going to really actually go into the list of the really exciting players they have.
Yep.
You've got, like, Ronaldo and Quaresma. Everybody loves them. But really, it's not about that. You're right. It's about that kind of defensive stability, the disciplined defensive approach that got them through the Euros to the final. To win the final, I think is what you're going to see from them in this tournament.
And will you sort of indulge me a little
Sure.
more to say that their other possible team nickname should be the Reverse Vampires?
Okay.
Because they love crosses.
Okay.
This is how Portugal
I feel like you could have
plays.
gone with a lot of other things that don't like crosses. But yeah, sure.
This is how Portugal
I was going
plays.
like garlic, daylight, silver. What are we doing here?
So there's 4 central
Silver's
midfielders
werewolves.
really do stay central, including the aforementioned Bernardo Silva, right?
Yep.
Who you've seen from Man City will essentially play on the right wing, but he'll play sort of right centre mid or right of that front three or left of that front three, but he's not really licensed to go wide. He has to stay more central. And his whole job, and maybe João Mario would be like maybe the left side guy on the other side, his whole job is to stay central. They move the ball around and they wait for the fullbacks to come and join in. The job is to just feed the ball to the fullbacks, who will then put crosses in for Cristiano Ronaldo and Andre Silva. That is really the whole job of the midfielders. I really think of Bernardo Silva as almost like a kid who in class is like super talented, but is only allowed to do so much. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they're not allowed to stretch their legs and express themselves. They sort of have to do it by the book because that is what the coach wants.
It is what the coach wants. It's also the case that the coach wants them to be, as we've already alluded to, defensively very stable.
Yeah.
7 clean sheets in 10 games in qualifying.
The point is, the reason they won't let Bernardo Silva go drifting out to the wing is they want to maintain numbers in the middle. They don't want to ever get stretched out. So that's why the freedom of the attacking players is limited to just serving fullbacks so the fullbacks can serve crosses.
Okay. Well, I'm going to get into some of my predictions.
Yes, please do.
I'm going to say number 1, Portugal center backs will concede at least 1 penalty is a thing that I think is going to be happening
Because
in this
Pepe?
tournament. So it's a variety of things. It's what we've already talked about. It's kind of the aged experience can also mean there is a chance that if maybe somebody does get stretched, if they do commit too many numbers forward, you don't really want to be in a foot race with 2 or 3 of those guys.
I think it'll be end times if that happens. I think they're so against the idea of doing that I'd be very surprised if it happens. Although every team gets stretched at some point, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
On top of that, we already know Pepe has an inclination to maybe let the occasion get the better of him. That's happened at World Cups, at club level. So you always have that threat. Then
He's not short of competitive spirit, I'll put it that way.
Sure. And then the name that we haven't really mentioned is Ruben Dias, the 21-year-old Benfica center back. He did make the roster. He's one who I think if things don't go exactly according to plan in the first game, you actually might see him starting over Jose Font or Bruno Alves. I think Pepe is going to be a starter. But
So things have gone wrong with those
Yeah.
Portuguese old men of war centre-backs, and then you get Ruben Dias come in to replace.
Exactly.
Benfica centre-back, I believe. Yeah.
but from what
From memory, folks. From memory.
I literally just said it 30 seconds ago.
From memory.
I was wondering if you'd missed that when you
Short-term memory. Very short-term memory.
Indeed. But good to know that it's going in one ear, out the other. But from everything I read about him, it seems like he is a very strong, solid defender, but is prone to an occasional reckless challenge and has no qualms about using elbows and hands to defend corners and to make sure he gets leverage on people. Not to throw into a face, but just to sort of make sure that he's getting the space he needs to win a header.
So new Pepe?
But if you get spotted doing that in a game and you have Pepe doing it as well, it just seems like there are going to be moments where maybe the referee will point to the spot.
That makes sense to me. All right, I'll get one of my predictions out of the way. Prediction number 1.
Yep.
Portugal will lead the World Cup group stage stats, maybe the entire World Cup, in crosses. Because it is so much their game plan is to get left back Raphael Guerreiro. He will get forward, put crosses in. Who's the right back? Right back is Cedric Suarez. Those guys will be joining the attack regularly, swinging in crosses, aiming at Cristiano Ronaldo's head. It's such the focus of their game plan. I think that Portugal will lead the entire World Cup in attempted crosses, total attempted crosses.
Here's my question for you, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot, is that I was going to make a similar prediction until I listened back to your interview with Thiago Estevao, and he was saying that they have trouble getting crosses in because basically those fullbacks get forward, but maybe the people who are out wide don't necessarily get out of the way, and so it can be difficult to kind of have any sort of sustained build-up play the channels.
So I remember that interview, and I think what he's talking about is it's not like you see them double teaming, right? It's not Cedric Soares and Bernardo Silva are both both streaming down the wing together and creating like a 2-on-1 situation against the fullback. It's more like they're not always crossing from really good positions.
Okay.
It's more that João Mario will be like Bernardo Silva's like the right centre mid, and he draws people towards him. All those Portuguese centre mids move the ball around quickly but don't really create anything. And then eventually when they've drawn enough people in, then they'll just hit Cedric Soares on the overlap.
Gotcha.
So it's like they do create the space to cross, but they're not sort of beating people to have really clear attempts at crosses. So I'm picturing those crosses that are more like level with the top of the penalty box but out wide, as opposed to the end line and you can pick it out from there.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Sure. So you're thinking most crosses in the tournament. Do you think those come to anything?
Not all of them.
Okay.
But some of them will, because to aim at, they have, like we said, Cristiano Ronaldo. And if you have not been paying attention to Ronaldo over the last few years, you've basically been watching a man in slow motion morph from dribbly winger of many, many years ago to almost pure centre forward, right? Cristiano Ronaldo is a centre forward at this point. He's very good at like fake back post run, send the defender that way, then dart to the near post, get there first. His headers are technically perfect and always on target, right? And then he's joined by Andre Silva, who is, I'd say not as powerful in the air as Ronaldo, but no slouch either. Andre Silva's better at sort of flicking it on to try and put Ronaldo through. Like really, I think he's a really good complement to Cristiano Ronaldo. He's almost sometimes like a decoy, is what I noticed. Like he'll make a run to the far post, take a defender, and then Cristiano Ronaldo has one less defender to deal with. So it's not a bad job to have, right? I'd be Cristiano Ronaldo's decoy.
I think so.
Yeah. Body double.
The way I drew it up, as I said, I think I was with you. I had a 4-1-3-2 with this one, but I definitely had it as sort of 4-1-3, and then Andre Silva, and then Cristiano Ronaldo a little bit further ahead.
That feels about
because I
right.
imagine Silva will be the one who's dropping in and doing a little bit more of the defensive work. Ronaldo does Ronaldo things.
Worth noting as well, this is a team with a lot of Silva.
Yeah.
So there's Andre Silva, the striker. There's Bernardo Silva, the Man City attacking midfielder, former Monaco player. And there's Adrian Silva, who could be like the number 8 central midfielder who plays ahead of the defensive midfielder. You could get 3 Silvas on the field at one point in this game.
And I feel like I would like one of them.
Because against Spain, if they have David Silva play, you get 4 Silvas on the field. That'd be the most Silvas in a World Cup game ever, surely.
There might be another Silva possible in there, too. But I want to say, with all that said, that my other prediction is that Portugal will not get out of the group.
Ooh!
Yes, I know. Or if they do, it will be by the skin of their teeth. And I have a variety of reasons for this. You're looking at your paper as though yours is like Portugal is going to make it to the final.
It doesn't say that.
Okay, good. I may be totally wrong. And I feel like this is one of those that could come back to haunt me when I say they're not going to get out of the group, and then they do end up going to the final by grinding their way through and getting spectacular goals from Ronaldo.
The Euro 2016 story.
It is. But and it's worth noting that they won the final without Cristiano Ronaldo on the field. He got the injury. He was on the sidelines. Assistant coaching is the joke.
I'm going to say head coaching.
Yeah, there's that. But I am still of the mind that there were problems in that Euro team that the kind of defensive stability covered. And I worry that it's a team that is now 2 years older across the board, or at least with the 13 that remain. But you don't have that holding midfield cover. And I'm saying this like basically because I think it's like my expectations were so high. I have never been as impressed by William Carvalho since 2016, actually, since that Euro, because this is going to be his third major tournament. At the past 2, with the World Cup in 2014, Euros, I thought he was going to be the next breakout player. And I've kept waiting for him to make that step. And he's a good player, don't get me wrong. But he is not necessarily the midfield general that I expected him to become. Again, he's only like 26, I think.
Yeah. Well, can we talk William Carvalho then?
Sure.
Because I actually think he's because in the 4-1-3-2, he's the one, right? He's the deepest midfielder that sits in front of the old men centre-backs. And there really is a lot on him, so I think he's an important player.
I don't disagree that he's important. I just think that he is the only one in my mind who can really do that job on this team, and I think sometimes he doesn't do it as effectively as they need him to.
Well, that's interesting.
Or even at club level. I think there's a reason this is going to sound disrespectful. I don't mean for it to, but there's a reason why he's still at Sporting and hasn't made a jump to a bigger team.
He loves the Lisbon city.
I'm not sure that anybody loves being in Sporting right now. There's a little bit of chaos going on there.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I want to talk about William Carvalho because I really like him. And I also want to get listeners familiar with him. Mm-hmm. You will see William Carvalho at central defensive midfield, and he will have a 1970s cop moustache.
Yep.
And it will look completely out of place because, as Taylor said, he's 26, and he looks 26, right? He looks kind of like a young, athletic guy. But that moustache is the moustache of a sort of 50-year-old at the very, very least. But I would also say, here's my little explanation of Carvalho. Like a 70s cop, he will chase you down on foot, even if he has to sort of slide over the hood of a car to do so.
I think you're thinking of certain 70s cops.
Yes.
Those, not necessily the ones that I think
like
of, but
Starsky
I think Sure.
But I also like William Carvalho. So this is what I saw from him. When he wins it back, he's got some moves, right? He's not just like a bruising defensive midfielder. He can do like a drag back and pass to sort of fool you, put you off balance. Or I've seen him have a couple of Zidane-esque roulettes out of trouble after he's won the ball back. So I'm a big fan of him. I think maybe he doesn't stand out as much because he has 3 extra central midfielders ahead of him. So a lot of the defensive work is shared around, as opposed to it being like an N'Golo Kante situation where it's like, hey, N'Golo, you go do everything.
Okay.
Yeah? So maybe we disagree on Billy Carvalho.
I think we disagree a little bit. Now, again, part of that may be because in the past I've been so hyped on him that maybe I'm checking that intentionally this time.
You bought too many tickets on the hype train.
But again, I mean, to keep referencing that interview, like Thiago talks about how they don't play well together, Carvalho and Moutinho, and that's why he thinks there's going to be other holding midfield options and other number 8s.
Yes.
And it does feel like it's going to be Moutinho starting with Carvalho behind him.
Yeah. And it's very conservative, right? There's no real number 10 type dude there. That's sort of the problem with Portugal, but it's also the strength of Portugal.
Yep.
That's my argument for them.
Okay. And then I would add that with so many of the players on this team, if you read the previews, not with most players, but a lot of players, it begins with a disappointing club season, or didn't have as many games, or didn't go the way they thought it would. I mean, that's Adrian Silva at Leicester, that he didn't get as many minutes until recently. Andre Silva had a disappointing return at AC Milan compared to what was expected of him. I mean, even like João Mario, like we went from being this kind of he could be a potential impact player at West Ham to I can't really say what he did this season for West Ham. Yeah. So it just feels like there's lots of parts in there that aren't in prime form.
Relegated?
Yeah, there we go. That's something to be proud of. Raphael Guerreiro had lots of different injuries this season.
He'll be one to watch though, right? By the way, if you're watching Portugal, look out for left back Raphael Guerreiro. He's a guy who's very capable of playing midfield, as he has done for Dortmund many, many times. He will get forward, swing some crosses in. They will be beautiful crosses. Very talented player.
But he's still one who I saw lots of people, or I feel like that's a vague way to argue, but I saw different write-ups making the point that his injuries had them wondering if he was even going to be in the provisional roster. So the fact that he's going to be their starter, again, it's a question mark. And then the final thing for me is basically that Spain on the first game is a very bad draw for them because unless you can grind out a result, it feels like that's a game where they might think, oh, we'll smash the other two teams, we'll get 6 points, they'll get 9 points, whatever, it's fine. Whereas I think there's a chance that if they don't get a result, either that could be a win or a draw, they come out of the game with 0 points. If, say, Morocco beat Iran, Morocco have 3 points, those two meet each other on the second match day. Third match day is Morocco potentially playing a Spain that's won everything, Portugal having to get a result. It just feels like they haven't maybe been put in the best position with that number 1 seed to come out of this group as effectively as they might have otherwise.
Counter argument is their conservative style might be well suited to playing against a Spain team that's going to be all out attack, and it actually might be a game that works for them. And I think Thiago said to me that they actually have trouble breaking down more defensive teams. So weirdly, Iran might be the tougher game because Iran aren't going to come out of their shell so much.
Yes.
Yeah. So
and that's one team in the 3. That's the other thing. Is we've talked about this a little bit. The narrative that I keep seeing is Spain and Portugal. They're going to have to break down these super compact Iran and Moroccan teams. Morocco not that compact.
No,
pretty attacking.
Yeah.
So it feels like, again, that's the thing where if they were up against 3 teams that maybe were more attacking, it benefits them a little bit. But I just think the variety they're going to be facing could be problematic.
All right. The good news is we get to see that Portugal-Spain game early in the tournament. It'll be the first, as I understand it, it'll be the first meeting of 2 big-name teams at World Cup 2018. It'll be the one where I'm sort of...
aside from Russia and Saudi Arabia?
Yes, aside from Russia and Saudi Arabia. Everyone will be rubbing their hands together and saying, oh, Cristiano Ronaldo, oh, Andres Iniesta. You know what I'm saying? It'll be the big game to get to watch. I have a second prediction.
What you got?
Cristiano Ronaldo will join the 4-timers club.
Okay.
So he has scored in 3 consecutive World Cups. He scored 1 goal each in 2006, 2010, 2014. There are only 3 players who have scored in 4 consecutive World Cups. That's Pele, Uwe Seeler, German striker, and Miroslav Klose, also the German striker.
I think I could have gotten 2 of those 3.
Ronaldo will get... Well, Seeler would have been the one that was trouble.
No, Pele. Yes, Seeler. Yes.
I think Cristiano Ronaldo scores at least 1 goal in this tournament, even if Portugal don't have a great tournament. If they do, he'll score many more than 1 goal. So he'll join the 4-timers club. If he manages to stick around until 2022, which is possible given his sort of fitness regimen, right? He'd be 37. Lord Michaels gives him a jacket.
I like that. I think he will. I think even if they don't get out of the group, they very, very well may get out of the group, but even if they don't, you have to believe if somebody's going to score goals for Portugal, it will be Ronaldo. Maybe Quaresma coming off the bench.
Ricky Q!
But I think you're absolutely right. And obviously, he'll probably be the one taking penalties as well.
Yeah.
So for all those reasons, I think you're definitely right. He probably makes the 4-timers club.
Yeah, there could even just be a cross into the box and maybe someone tugs on his shirt, he goes down. Penalty, Ronaldo. There we go.
That was my other specific prediction, but it didn't feel strong enough, was that he'll get a penalty. Actually, I think I specifically from a corner, but it's not one that I need to make.
Before we move on to our final categories, I like to include a description of the coach. So Fernando Santos, who was the Euro 2016 World Cup winning, Euro 2016 winning coach. I'm getting very much ahead of myself on that. He really does have this counter-attacking plan that we've talked about, this sort of conservative plan that we've talked about. I'm going to say he looks like a mafia captain with ambitions to be the Don.
Okay.
He more specifically looks like Phil Leotardo from The Sopranos.
The Shah?
The Shah, yes.
Yeah.
Which could be interesting for the Iran game.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I see that.
Can you see that?
I see that.
Yeah.
I do always enjoy that one of his main photos that comes up if you search his name is him smoking.
Yes.
That seems appropriate.
Yeah, that was one of the ones that led me to this.
Yeah.
Okay, to wrap up Portugal then, who is the breakout player, Taylor? Who's the guy that people will be made aware of that maybe they weren't aware of and might get himself some sort of big transfer move?
Well, first, I want to say one more thing about Fernando Santos because I think it's important to note that your analogy is apt because he did deliver that one press conference where he talked about how he really wanted Menacult, but instead had to make grilled cheese on a radiator. The player that
was a weird press conference.
It really was. You didn't see that one coming. He made some other comments. They were more bold. In terms of exciting youngsters, I think the one that most jumps to mind would be Gonçalo Guedes. I'm sure I'm butchering that one, but I don't speak Portuguese, so I apologize. 21-year-old right winger or right-footed left winger, depending on how you want to go. Plays for Valencia on loan from PSG. He seems like one who probably isn't going to start, at least probably won't start against Spain. Maybe gets a start in the second or third group stage game. I think comes off the bench and causes problems. I
see him sort of in a red and glass case that says sort of in case of attacking emergency, break glass. I mean, maybe they put Quaresma in first, but I think Guedes is the other one with a bit of unpredictability coming off the bench, right?
I agree.
It'll be a conservative start, but if they're struggling for goals towards the end of games, there's all kinds of weird attacking options that don't fit with the normal game plan, but there's some dice that Santos can roll.
Yeah, I think that's well said because Quaresma, it seems like, has that relationship with Ronaldo from 2016.
Yeah, that's tight, right? They're buddies.
Yeah, and so they, I feel like, know how to combine. And then maybe Guedes comes in as this player who can obviously link up, but also will drive at defenses, will really push that ball forward, will try to make something happen if they're chasing the game, if they need to maybe get at a defense that's a little bit stretched or a little bit tired. That is where I think you see him come in and have an impact.
I could see him replacing the number 8 type player and be like dribbling straight down the middle, which is a thing that, say, João Moutinho is not so capable of doing.
That's well said.
The guys I think could get a big move after this, it alludes to what you mentioned earlier, a couple of Sporting Lisbon players or Sporting Club de Portugal players, if you want to put it that way. So 2 guys on this roster that got my attention. Bruno Fernandes, who can play... I've got it that he can play in any of the 3 non-Carvalho midfield spots. Like he's got a lot of clever passes. He can bend in a cross. He's got a nice shot from distance with not too much backlift. He probably won't start, but he could be someone they bring off the bench. He's at Sporting Club de Portugal. And Gelson Martins is more of a winger. Like we talked about those highlight videos, right? So I didn't watch a whole game with Gelson Martins. Did watch highlight videos. Can confirm very, 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 very fast. This guy is rapid. So he could come off the bench and turn something around. But the big thing is, a lot of the Sporting players right now want to leave Sporting. So they could be looking for moves.
Yeah, to that end, I believe Rui Patricio, who will be the starting goalkeeper for Portugal in this tournament, has been playing for Sporting. I think left Portugal camp to, the rumor is go sign for Napoli to be their new starter.
There were some Wolves rumours for a little while, but nothing really came to fruition.
Who do you have as your goalkeeper right now?
John Ruddy.
What more could you need? I'm pretty sure you always had
Rui Patricio.
Yeah, why not? So I think, and for a second I thought you were going to include William Carvalho on that list, and then it made more sense to me why you were staring at your paper when I talked about how he might be slightly overrated.
Would you mind just filling people in very briefly on the Sporting Club de Portugal, Sporting Lisbon story?
Yes. So this is like my rudimentary understanding of things. It seems like there was fan unrest, which led to fans like breaking into the training facility and assaulting players, assaulting staff. I think one staff member, their trainer, their fitness trainer, has quit forever. He's retired from soccer. He says he's having like panic attacks and anxiety attacks and like PTSD-esque symptoms because he was assaulted by this mob of fans. Oof. And you can find the video of like of the players in the locker room with like smoke everywhere. I believe in Portuguese saying like, "It's been nice playing with you all. I'm out of here." On top of that I think is rooted in one thing I saw is that they failed to qualify for the Champions League. They finished third. They had it in their hands and didn't execute. But then there's also stories relating to match fixing. I think that was believed to just be with their handball team, but now it seems like that has extended to an investigation into the soccer team as well. I think like 2 cup matches that they won by surprising score lines maybe has some people looking at that club. And so it just seems like maybe match fixing, fan unrest, being assaulted, having your training ground, burned is not a thing that is going to keep people there.
So could be some Sporting Club de Portugal players on the move. The names again, Rui Patricio, William Carvalho maybe, Bruno Fernandes and Gelson Martins.
Yes. And then the final thing that we wanted to look at is reasons why maybe Americans might want to root for this team, since obviously they have no rooting interest in the tournament or no national team in the tournament. Really the only thing I could say is it's Cristiano Ronaldo. If you want that sort of star power, he is the type of player where you really can't look away, because Portugal could be defending for 88 minutes, and then he pops up and scores an amazing goal. Yep. He does have that ability to kind of turn it on in a second's notice.
I would bet that the guys at Fox Sports are hoping that Ronaldo goes deep in the tournament, right? Because it gives them another big name to to focus on. And I think maybe that's true for us, right? There's more sort of casual soccer fans who might pay more attention if Portugal are in the round of 16 or the quarterfinal. Means maybe more Total Soccer Show listeners.
Yeah. Right? There was an interview in The Athletic today with the gentleman who I think is putting together all of Fox's coverage for the World Cup.
Oh, really?
And the final question was, like, how much or how often are you praying for a Messi-Ronaldo final? And he said, every night. So there you go. I think that confirms your suspicions.
The only other reason I had to support them is because Ricardo Quaresma is a prince.
That is a decent reason to support them. He is that Trivela, man. You got to love that Trivela.
All right, before we move on to Spain, today's show is sponsored by the fine people at SeatGeek. If you need seats, SeatGeek can find it. It's made buying and selling tickets to sporting events and other live events easier than it's ever been. 2 taps on your phone, you can buy or sell a ticket.
SeatGeek is the smartest, easiest way to get tickets to every type of live event. Daryl Grove, you were looking up live events coming to Richmond, and I would say surprisingly, you were excited to see wrestling coming to town.
I was, yeah. The WWE is coming to town, Richmond Coliseum, May 28th, I believe, which is really soon. I have never seen wrestling live. I've only seen it on television. And I've sort of... Weirdly, there's a lot of overlap on soccer Twitter with wrestling Twitter. If you
it does seem that way, yeah.
And I think reading people's tweets, I've got a newfound appreciation of wrestling. I definitely went through the phase of I was a little kid and I watched it and I thought it was entirely real. Then I kind of got older and realised, this is scripted. It's not like, I'm not going to say it's fake because it's not fake, right? These guys are athletes and they're performers. And I think that's what the realisation I've come to in the last few years is realising that wrestling is theatre, essentially, right? It'd be like going to see Hamlet and saying, it's all fake. You know what I'm saying?
I would love for you to make this argument to your wife, because I would be curious to see how she would respond to wrestling as theatre.
Well, yeah. she might go for it. She's very culturally open-minded.
All right. Well, Daryl Grove, the good news is that if she were to want to attend a wrestling match with you, you all could use SeatGeek to find the best available tickets.
Yep.
And you could get $20 off your first purchase by using the promo code TSS.
So you enter the promo code in settings, TSS, for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. And it might be enough to persuade your significant other to go see some wrestling.
There we go. So Braun Strowman, I think, is the big one right now. Like literally the big one right now. He's a huge guy.
I thought the Ultimate Warrior was the main dude.
First of all, that's WCW.
What?
I think most recently, maybe he came back to WWE. I don't know. There's been a lot of changing.
Do they still have the Bushwhackers?
That I don't even know what that was. The Millwall Firm? Is that them?
What?
Isn't that their like hooligan gang?
Oh, maybe. I also may have the wrestling team's name completely wrong.
Who knows? But all our listeners need to do is download the SeatGeek app and enter the promo code TSS today. That's promo code TSS for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase.
For our second team of the day, let's stick with the Iberian Peninsula. Because it's Spain. Spain, 2010 World Cup winners, 2014 World Cup flameouts, Spain. Their nickname is La Furia Roja, the Red Fury. I believe their nickname should be the Revitalized Rondo Lovers.
Ooh, okay. I like that.
So if you remember the 2010 version of Spain...
I've seen a lot of Rondo stuff lately.
Right?
Yep.
So the 2010 version of Spain and the 2012 Euros version of Spain... It was like peak Barcelona transposed into peak Spain with some Real Madrid sprinkled in. Right?
Genuine question, not just trying to be difficult. Do you include 2008 in there as well, the 2008 Euros team? Or is that like a separate entity in your mind?
I want to, but it's so long ago and I didn't pay as close attention because it was pre-Total Soccer Show that I don't necessarily want to.
Wasn't it?
But also, I mean, I'm going to guess yes.
Okay.
All right. So that sort of 2008, 2010, 2012 team, they stuck with them too long. They stuck with Del Bosque too long, right? And things kind of went wrong in 2014, not so great in 2016 either. This team it still has a core of many of the same players who've been involved in that period, right? Piqué and Ramos are there. Iniesta and Busquets are still there. But it's been sort of re-energized and infused with some youth, starting with the coach. Julian Lopetegui is only 51. He was the Spanish, under-19 and under-21 coach. He won championships with both teams. And a lot of the players he's brought in and added to the Spain team are guys like De Gea, for example, Thiago, Koke, Rodrigo, Carvalho. All those guys he worked with at youth level. So they've got this youth connected to this experience like Iniesta, and they've reinvigorated their rondo-loving version of Spain. I always think the tiki-taka they play now is faster. From the couple games I've watched recently, the tiki-taka, the ball moves faster than it used to.
Yep, I agree. And that's why I have them, my nickname is... bear with me, the favored underdogs, because essentially you hear a lot about them as being one of the favorites, but I think it's very much Brazil, Germany, and then there's kind of like a second tier that Spain falls into. And I think a big part of that is what you're talking about, is that I think Lopetegui has excluded some of the bigger names, but also left off other names that justifiably could be on this roster, could be on most World Cup rosters. But
Cesc Fabregas?
If you want the list, it is the ones that I have on my list. Hector Bellerin, Sergio Roberto, Marcos Alonso, Ander Herrera, Marc Bartra, Javi Martinez, Iermendi, Cesc Fabregas, Jose Callejon, Alvaro Morata, Juan Mata, and Pedro. Whoa. All not in this team.
I forgot about Juan Mata.
Yeah. So did Lopetegui. All that is to say that I think, to your point, they've brought in a lot of players who fit his system, who he knows what they're capable of, and will execute the game plan as he needs them to.
And the game plan is tiki-taka.
Yep.
Move that ball quickly. It looks like 2009 Barcelona. It looks like 2010 Spain. It's zip, 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 1 and 2 touch, pass, move, 4-3-3. And then if you lose the ball, win it back again immediately high up the field. That's what I've seen them keep doing, and doing it very, very effectively.
Yep, and with that in mind, you look at some of their qualification games. They finished top of their group ahead of Italy. A major reason why Italy is not at this tournament. But in that game, the thing I was watching, like the extended highlights from it, and the thing I kept being so surprised by, I was like, wait, why is Piqué? Oh, it must have been a set piece. Nope, Piqué was just in the attack trying to win that header. So was Sergio Ramos. Or there's Jordi Alba. All of their defenders are constantly, like Danny Carvalho having 3 different shots in 2 minutes.
Yep.
All of their defenders are very much involved in that attack, and it's to your point, it's that tiki-taka, get forward, cause problems, cause overloads, move the ball, frustrate the opponent, confuse the opponent, score a bunch of goals.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're a serious contender for the World Cup based on what I've seen when I started really watching footage. I sort of had that feeling of, this reminds me of a few years back when Spain were unbeatable.
I think there's 2 vulnerabilities that I can see, but we don't have to get to those.
No, let's get to them now.
All right. Strangely, bear with me when I say this one as well, a vulnerability is Sergio Busquets. And I say that only because they're probably going to play a 4-3-3, 4-1-4-1 sort of system. Busquets, similar to Portugal, is the only player who can do that role for this Spain team. There really isn't that number 6 holding midfielder who can distribute and do the job he does.
So when the games I watched where Busquets was not available, Thiago Alcantara would play in the Busquets role. I thought he did just fine.
Here is the problem with Thiago. He has had an up-and-down season with Bayern Munich and hasn't been as consistent as a result as maybe fans would like. And so if you're kind of banking on him to cover certain responsibilities, that's the only thing. I'm not saying he will struggle. I'm just saying that is a concern that I've seen is Thiago's sort of up-and-down form with Bayern. If you need him to maybe fill in for Sergio Busquets, if Busquets gets injured, maybe that's not as strong of a replacement as were maybe available in their depth chart.
So this to me, this gets to an interesting way of looking at the
again,
World Cup.
grasping at straws here because they're a very good team.
No, I get it. But it gets to me an interesting way of looking at World Cup teams, right? I genuinely believe that a lot of the time it sort of doesn't matter what form you've had over the season.
Agreed.
To me, it really matters how you mesh with your national team and how ready you are and how you perform over the 3 to 7 games that you play at the World Cup. So I don't care if Thiago had a rough November or January or even March, right? If he's ready to go in June, I think Thiago can have a huge impact on this World Cup.
Yeah, and I would take that one step further to say that I really don't care about club form at all. As long as you're fit and you've been playing, I think there are so many extenuating circumstances where you could be on a team where you're used to having it at your feet, but if they're just hoofing it long for you, you're not going to look as good. But if your national team is structured in such a way that they play to your strengths, you could be a completely different player for your national team than your club team. We'll talk more about that with some of the other players in other teams.
I think John Stones is an example, right? Barely needed by Man City and not entirely trusted.
Yeah.
England sort of bringing the ball at the back is entirely built around him, and I'm weirdly okay with it. I guess more on that when we get to England's group.
I think so.
Yeah.
But I think that is, strangely, it's not a thing you and I have talked about, and maybe I'm totally wrong, but it does feel like this tournament is kind of consistently you are seeing those selections of, nope, he fits the manager system, he fits the way they want to play. Doesn't really matter if he didn't have the best of seasons at club level. It means as long as he's playing into the system, which maybe makes me think differently about Portugal, but I'm still content for them not to get out of the group.
That's why I'm more up on Portugal than you, I think. Not necessarily to enjoy watching them, but I think they'll grind out results.
We'll see.
Here's the thing with Spain that I slightly worry about. So 4-3-3, like we said.
It's hard to grind when you're a champion, though.
It's
just
true,
putting
right?
that out there.
Yeah. We need a new word for that, right?
Yeah.
So 4-3-3, pressing, possession, pressing, moving the ball around quickly. When they do eventually get forced back, they fall into what I'm going to call essentially a 4-4-2. Right? Iniesta will join the striker. We'll talk about who the striker will be maybe later.
Sure.
And they have a very compact, tight 4-4-2 that looks like Arrigo Sacchi's Milan teams of the early 90s, or like a Claudio Ranieri Leicester team, right? Where the defensive line is high, but also the strikers aren't over the halfway line. So they were just squeezed into this middle third, their defensive side of the halfway line thing, right?
Okay.
And they do it pretty well, but I really think there's a chance that if you can just really time a run through the back, you can definitely put a ball in behind them and get on the end of it.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility. The one thing I would say to counter that is this is David De Gea's tournament, and he is used to having to put out fires at club level. So I do wonder if maybe he's a bit more prone to, say, come off his line than Iker Casillas may have been.
Is he used to a high line, though? He's not really Manuel Neuer, right? I think of weirdly De Gea being good with his feet in terms of a foot save. I don't know how good he is at racing off his line and sort of taking a touch and maybe dropping a shoulder and beating a striker.
I mean,
I genuinely don't know that.
Admittedly, this is 5 or 6 years ago, but as I recall, that's part of the reason why they went for him in the first place when Ferguson was still there, is because they wanted a goalkeeper who could settle and play out of the back with his feet, as opposed to make those saves that, say, Ben Foster could make, but maybe didn't have the ability at his feet.
Oh, Ben Foster.
He's still around.
He's still around. He's not. He will not be in Russia unless he got tickets.
He will not.
Okay, what else you want to talk about with Spain?
I mean, I want to talk about some of the people who maybe we haven't gotten to yet, starting with Sergio Ramos.
Sergio Ramos.
And my prediction with Sergio Ramos is that he will make the World Cup team of the tournament.
Wow. Why so?
Because this is his first time captaining Spain at a major tournament. It's been Casillas in the past. It's Sergio Ramos this time. So I think that raises his level of coverage, the way people maybe look at him and cover him in the media, which I think factors into that. I think Spain go deep, and so anytime you have a player who's captaining a team that goes deep into the tournament, they start to get a little bit more look. But then obviously it's Sergio Ramos. He's an amazing center back. He's partnering Gerard Piqué. There's a chance that the two of them are on the team of the tournament.
Since we're talking about this, I love the Ramos-Piqué partnership. They are both sort of really aggressive. Like, they're really willing to step out of that back four and go and meet you and beat you and win the ball. And they're both super confident in doing so. And the thing is, when one of them leaves, if they don't get there, then the other one's still left behind. So you've got two really sort of borderline unbeatable centre-backs. Like, just a physical tussle, they will win. And they're both really good with the ball at their feet. So when they do that tiki-taka thing, they're completely comfortable playing the ball out of the back.
And so maybe what I'm saying applies to Gerard Piqué as well, aside from the captaincy, but it's also worth noting that they're also very comfortable getting into the attack, as I said. And I think Sergio Ramos on corners, we know he can score those timely corners, but I've seen him score from open play. He had the assist for Spain's third goal, I think it was, when they beat Italy 3-0. So he can definitely get involved in the attack, and I just think you're going to see a lot of highlights of him for a variety of reasons. I think he makes the team at the tournament.
Can we talk about the striker situation?
Sure.
So there are 3 strikers selected. None of them are Alvaro Morata, which was kind of tough, right? Because he was a guy that had worked with Lopetegui at youth level. The 3 strikers selected are Diego Costa, Iago Aspas, who I believe plays for Celta Vigo, and Rodrigo, the Brazilian-born but Spanish striker Rodrigo. Those are his Valencia. 3 centre forwards. Thank you. I did not have that note. I don't know which one's going to start.
Nor do I.
Do you want to weigh up the various options?
I mean,
we'll do Lopetegui's job for him?
I kind of just assumed that it would be Diego Costa.
Do you do that because he's the guy you're most familiar with?
100%
because you've seen
him
in the Premier League?
Yeah, I mean, no, I 100% did that. Only when I started to read more and more about how you think it's Diego Costa, it might be Iago Aspas. I think we had a tweet about that like an hour ago.
We did. I just saw the 2 names. I didn't get to actually fully read the tweet.
Yeah. So, and that's one area where I don't feel as confident because I don't know what Lopetegui necessarily is expecting out of his center forward.
Here's what I do know. Here's my prediction.
Yep.
Whoever starts, whether it's Diego Costa or Iago Aspas, we don't think it'll be Rodrigo, right?
I have another reason why I don't think it matters as much. But anyway.
A Spanish striker will get an opposing player sent off.
Okay.
Because Diego Costa, as we well know from his time at Chelsea, is maybe the best in the world at getting under a defender's skin and causing a reaction, whether it's like a rash tackle or a strike because of something he's poked you a bit. Like, he's very good at walking the line enough that he hasn't done anything, but he's annoyed you enough to make you do something.
Yeah.
What I found out in my reading and watching is that Iago Aspas does a lot of the same stuff. He is an annoying guy to play against. He's also crafty, right? He has a lot of nice little passes, clever little ideas. Not as big as Costa, so he's not as much of a target man, but he's maybe better at running in behind. So that's really the key difference between them, right? Costa's more of a target man, Aspas is more of a get in behind type man, but they will both annoy you so much they could get a red card out of an opponent.
And strangely, I would say that's also like a strength they bring to the overall attack, is just that if you get a player sent off, that's an advantage.
Yeah.
But you can also get it...
Almost decimated the opposition.
Almost. But you could also have the situation when, say I'm marking Daryl, and my job has been, mark Daryl, but also make sure that you're paying attention to that number 10 who comes through, every 10 minutes or so. If Daryl's shoving me and pushing me and, maybe give me a little elbow when the ref's not paying attention, I might get a little bit annoyed. I might be overly focused on Daryl. I might want to win the ball off him to prove that I'm better, and now I'm 100% focused on him and not 10% focused on that runner who's going to be coming through.
Whose name is Andres Iniesta.
Exactly.
I'm on the same team as Iniesta.
So I think that's good. So I think that is another strength that that style of play, if you want to call it that, brings to the team.
Got any more predictions for me?
I do. I think this is kind of like a general one. It's not as specific as maybe we would like, but I'm going to say this will be the summer of Isco.
The summer of Isco.
Yes, because essentially I think this will be a breakout tournament that sees him get the respect that he probably deserves.
Yep.
And I know Madrid fans are looking at their off into space, since this is an audio production, with a little bit of a curious face, because I think Isco's a guy who plays a variety of roles for Real Madrid and is incredibly important. But I think unless you are a Madrid fan, or maybe you watch a lot of La Liga, you might not think of him as this kind of world-class player. Yeah. And I think he is. I think even a couple months ago, I said Christian Pulisic might be better than him. And watching more footage, reading more about him, I'm just realizing how wrong that was. Isco,
you should have added one day.
Yes, yeah, sure. But Isco is a player who I feel like this tournament, if Spain go deep, if they have a successful one, he moves from that tier of looking at this squad and being like, "Ooh, they've left off so many superstars. Or they don't have some of that like star power they used to have." And by the end of the tournament, you're like, "Oh man, they've got that star power."
Yep.
And I think he's not the only one. I think Asensio is in that mold as well. He could have a breakout tournament. But Isco, especially if he does well in the Champions League final, that might determine if it's the summer of Isco. But he scored a brace against Italy, and they were.
Do you make him sound a little bit like a serial killer?
What, Summer of Sam?
Yeah.
Okay, that's one. Yeah, okay. I see what you're getting at.
Maybe he just kills opposition teams' defenses.
Isco's warm quarter season, I got nothing. But I think you can also look at the way he linked up with Iniesta throughout World Cup qualifying, the way he looks poised under pressure, the way he kind of doesn't rush decisions. I found him and Iniesta kind of moving the ball around at the top of the opposition box on a regular basis, and both of them continuously found opportunities to either shoot or assist or score or do whatever they wanted to do.
You've hit on one of the things I love about this team. My backup nickname from them was the El Clasico All-Stars. Because it is basically a combination of the best of Barcelona and the best of Real Madrid. And the way I think of it is, if you look at that back four, it literally goes right...
Ronaldo might like a word with you, but sure.
Spanish eligible, right? Right back, Carvalho, Real Madrid. Right centre-back, Piqué, Barcelona. Left centre-back, Ramos, Real Madrid. Left back, Alba, Barcelona. The three central midfielders, I think, will be Iniesta, Busquets, and Thiago. Thiago, formerly Barcelona. The other two, still Barcelona, at least for now. So it's a Barcelona central midfield. Then the wide guys will probably be Isco and Asensio. So it's really like this staggered, like Real Madrid, Barcelona, Real Madrid.
I might disagree with you on that one.
You think maybe David Silva?
I think David Silva on the right, Isco on the left.
Yeah, that's very possible too. But in my dream version here, it's Real Madrid wingers, and then you've got sort of non-Barcelona Real Madrid centre forward. Yeah.
I think all that checks out.
And I'm sticking with the El Clasico All-Stars, and I get my money from the ATM machine.
Beautiful. So I've done two predictions. I've got one more, but what have you got, Daryl?
So my second prediction is this team, the Spain team, will complete the most passes per game in the group stage and probably across the whole World Cup. So Portugal will have the most attempted crosses. Spain will have the most completed passes because they just move that ball so very quickly. One touch, two touch, one touch, two touch. It just moves and moves and moves and moves and moves until you're dizzy, and then they score.
That works. And if they, maybe some of their starters, I don't have them as a starter, you do. If you need a player to come in and have an impact, I think that is Marcos Asensio.
Yes.
He's the other player
You're
that
probably
I was
right.
pretty interested to watch. And Tifo Football, who are they do the YouTube videos where they break down tactics.
Good,
They did a really good one about Asensio, and one thing they highlighted, which I then went and watched a bunch of video of him, it's called La Pausa. Are you familiar with La Pausa?
I don't know what that means, no.
I didn't either. It is like the deliberate slowing down of a game to find new opportunities to attack. So it can be just like putting your foot on the ball and inviting a defender in and then blowing by that defender. It can be putting your foot on the ball.
The old stop-start.
Yes, exactly. Or like waiting for the defender to come in and you do a wall pass. But the idea is you stop the ball, you slow it down enough that you look for a different opportunity than might have been there if you hadn't slowed it down. He does it a lot, and he's very good at it, and then has the acceleration to really capitalize upon anybody stepping too aggressively. So I'm also predicting you're going to see at least one like game-changing La Pausa from Asensio.
All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Yeah.
You explain what it is. Do you know what the actual literal translate? Oh, the pause.
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you. Did you answer my question before I even ended it? Well done. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
One final thing I'd like to do is my description of the manager. So when you get a good look at Julen Lopetegui, you will see your friend's uncle who used to be in a semi-successful indie guitar band, but now is an advertising executive. That is what Lopetegui looks like for me.
Yep. I like it. I think that's a good note to end our Spain preview on. Obviously, we could talk about Spain for a very long time, but instead I want to talk about Spain from a different context.
Ooh, okay.
I want to talk about your Spanish lineage, Daryl.
But first we've got to talk about the breakout players.
Okay.
Yeah, so do you have a breakout player?
Yeah, I have Asensio.
Oh, that's why you picked Asensio. Mine was the one guy that I didn't really recognise his name on this roster. I'm actually going to have to look at my page to figure out his name again. Alvaro Odriozola, the 22-year-old right back.
Yep.
Have you seen footage of this guy?
Nope.
So he's this overlapping attacking right back. He's going to be basically Carvalho's reserve. Plays for Real Sociedad. It's the only guy that I think that has sort of low familiarity. But there's a good chance, right, of a fullback picking up enough yellow cards or injuries or tiredness.
I think Kepa Arrizabalaga would like a word with you about not having a high profile. But yeah, otherwise.
So But Odriozola's the younger one who I think has the ability to sort of make an impact. I've seen a lot of La Liga fans talk about him in very high regard, and it's just maybe the likes of us that haven't quite caught on because we don't watch much Real Sociedad, but we may see Odriozola get better at it as we go at the World Cup.
Okay.
Final thing, reason to support Spain. Is there a reason for US fans to support Spain at the World Cup?
I've got two. Why don't you go first?
Iniesta's last stand. If you want to enjoy the sort of last tournament of one of the all-time joyful players to watch, Andres Iniesta he's not going to go as like a reserve, right? He's going to start for Spain. They're going to play his style of soccer. He's 35. He's left Barcelona. This is his last stand with Spain.
All right, and my two, I've got pretty soccer is just easier to watch. They're going to be pretty and fun to watch. And then I didn't mean for this to connect, but it actually does. According to the 2014 U.S. Census, 760,000 plus Americans have a Spanish ancestor. So if you are one of those 760,000 Americans, then you have an already built-in reason to watch them.
Would I be included in this?
You would be, because you have 6%, I guess. Is that what we found?
Today's show is sponsored by Ancestry.
I can't believe how well that just worked out. Yes. I really did have that in my notes.
So Ancestry is the largest DNA network in the world. It's got almost 10 million, DNA.
Yep.
10 million people's DNA data.
Nailed it.
It helps people find their unique stories in their DNA. We did the test, right?
They're in the computer?
They're in the computer. They're in the computer.
Yeah.
You spit in a little bottle.
Yep.
You send it away. They send it back with a breakdown of where your DNA comes from. I discovered I'm mostly English, mostly from the West Midlands, but some point back in the past, I've got 6% Iberian heritage. So either Portugal or Spain. So Group B is my official second favourite group.
Yep.
Yeah.
I believe we've already established 89% Great Britain, so I'm going to be rooting for England, but yeah, I guess it means, historically, maybe you go back to like military history, and I think I can't bring myself to root for Spain if I'm really going to embrace this English heritage. So maybe it's Morocco for me coming out of this group. Maybe that's where my loyalties lie.
If you would like to find out your own sort of DNA roots, figure out if you've got any other team to root for.
Because there's no history of the English clashing with, say, like Middle Eastern culture at all. That's never happened.
Or America.
Yeah.
If you would like to find a team that you can root for in the World Cup, even if it's only 6% of you, you can go to ancestry.com/DNA. You will find all the information you need to submit your DNA sample. It's very easy to do. And you can also get 20% off with our discount code TSS20. TSS20.
There you are.
One question for you, though, Taylor. If I do decide, hey, I'm going all in with my Iberian heritage, all 6% of it, which team should I support?
I think, strangely, you're in a position where you could go Spain, because to neutrals, maybe Portugal are the reigning European champions, so it seems like a bandwagon pick, even though I fully expect Spain to go much further in this tournament.
Sold. Okay, I'll be supporting Spain in the first Group B game.
And my two things...
Viva España!
My two things I wanted to clarify. Number one, when Daryl says you spit into a bottle, it's more like a mailable test tube is what I would say. It's not like, I got an empty plastic bottle laying around.
You can't just pick any bottle.
Yes.
It is like a scientific thing. It's got some fluid in there that sort of activates the DNA for the way they need to look at it. Yeah, it's much more scientific than I made it sound.
Indeed. And the second thing, you pointed out that you can use Ancestry to connect with like distant relatives that you may not have known.
Yes, it will show you DNA matches.
Yeah.
So anyone who has a significant overlap with your DNA is like you have a common ancestor. Like you may not be first cousins, you might be fifth, sixth cousins, but it will show you a list of people in the database who opt in to be shown, right? You don't get in there unless you want to. Who you show you have a DNA match with.
And it confirmed 100% that I have a DNA match with my father. Did not know he had done Ancestry, but there it was. And I was like, all right, that checks out.
Yeah, so you know you're legitimate, right?
Yep.
So that's good. I searched through mine for Andres Iniesta and he wasn't there.
I'm going to guess I have a 100% match, but share 50% of his DNA. Just throwing that out there. I'm sorry that you're not related to Andres Iniesta. That's a bummer. I would have liked for him to be like an uncle. Maybe he's a distant cousin to me. Yeah.
I'll take a second look, just in case. So once again, it's ancestry.com/DNA, and the Total Soccer Show code for 20% off is TSS20, TSS20. The link will be in the show notes. If you're interested, please click it.
And for our listeners out there, we polled to ask them if the last show was a little bit too long. The general consensus was no, and a lot of people said it can be longer. If you were one who thought it should be shorter, maybe hit pause and pick this back up later, because we are halfway through and we are almost an hour in.
We are, but I think we've done well. I think think there's detail in there. I think it's worthwhile.
Yep.
I think in our Morocco and Iran previews coming up, there's going to be detail that you did not find elsewhere. Because, like I said, I watched some games.
Yep.
I watched some Morocco games. I watched some Iran games.
Yes.
And there are previews out there that I will guarantee did not do that. All right.
I will guarantee that.
Enough gloating, maybe.
Yes.
Enough gloating. Shall we move on to Morocco?
Yes. Usad El Atlas, the Atlas Lions.
That's how I would have translated it.
Yep. Sure, why not? And I'm calling them the North African Brazil.
Okay.
Yep. Because
Morocco fans will like that.
I mean, I think they should because it's a much more technical team than you might expect. They have individual brilliance in
sure
spots. The issue is their consistency. They're occasionally unreliable. Attackers with flair, but maybe they haven't always played into a system. I don't think that's as much of the case with this particular team, but there is that element of they could come out and score a 36-pass goal. They could also make a horrible mistake, have some individual errors, get into some arguments, and it ends up being a goal against. I think that's less common than it used to be, but I still think there's a little bit of that, not erratic performance, but inconsistency.
Fair enough. I am going to call them the tiki-taka tryhards.
Okay.
Or maybe the Spanish cover band.
I think Tiki Taki Tryhards is the best of the ones that we've come up with. And I agree with it completely.
Because they essentially play very similar to how we described Spain, right? They move the ball very quickly. They play 4-3-3. They move the ball very quickly. They knock it around quickly. They've got some creative attacking players who sort of move all over the place. When they lose the ball, they will press. They will aggressively press. And the passing is not quite as clean as Spain's. The pressing is not quite as coordinated, but it absolutely is what they're doing, and it's good enough to have got them to the World Cup, so something must be working.
I mean, and not just got them to the World Cup, but got them there. They scored in their final round of qualifying, so they're in a group with Morocco, Ivory Coast, Gabon, Mali. Scored 11 goals, did not concede a goal in the entirety of that campaign. 3 wins, 3 draws en route to automatic qualification.
So this is what I was talking about earlier. I think Morocco will be the team to make lazy previewers look foolish.
Agreed.
Because I have read, I feel bad like being mean to other
it's fine.
previews.
They're going to bunker, Daryl. Everyone knows.
Too many previews looked at their record. In the final round of African qualifying, as you just talked about, they conceded 0 goals. A lot of people have put 2 and 2 together and made 0. Because they essentially assumed that because of that, and because Mehdi Benatia, the former Bayern, current Juventus defender, is their centre-back and captain, that Morocco bunker and are super defensive and just like have some steely thing where their number one goal is to just not concede goals. But that's just completely wrong. They are not a defensive team at all. They are a sort of brave, expansive, risk-taking, attacking team. And the reason they didn't concede any goals is just because they did that so well that the other team never had a chance. Right?
Agreed. And I will try to not keep going down this road when it comes to criticizing other previews. And it was only a few, but one I saw say that it's a team composed primarily of players from the domestic league and the surrounding leagues. They have 3 players from their domestic league in this roster. It's mostly European. It is a mostly European-based squad with a lot of talent.
Technically, Morocco is surrounded by lots of different
Sure.
countries. So
I'm pretty sure that's not what they meant when they wrote that.
The surrounding leagues of the whole world.
Yeah. And I would say if you want to go further with that, 61.5% of the squad born outside of Morocco.
So that was going to be one of my reasons to support them, is that they are the most sort of global team. Shout out to Henry Bushnell, his Yahoo preview. Did not make the mistake that the others made.
Sure didn't.
I think he called them passing and pressing. Correctly called them. He also had that note of 61.5%. Born outside of Morocco. Yes.
And so
a lot of French, Dutch players,
all over the place. I wanted to say, though, I think a key part here is that from my research, it sounds like in the past, Morocco have been a team of individuals where you have individual brilliance, not necessarily team chemistry coming together to play as a collective whole. It sounds like they do now, and it sounds like a huge part of that is, I'm going to butcher the French, but Hervé Renard probably, their manager, 49-year-old Frenchman, whose attractiveness my wife and I debated for several minutes. He won Africa Cup of Nations with Zambia in 2012, Ivory Coast in 2015. So it seems like he has kind of brought this team together and moved them away from the I hesitate to say this, but the Adel Taarabt model. Do you remember Adel Taarabt? He's a player that was almost like Voldemort-esque in terms of nobody was if you brought him up in a preview, the comments were don't mention him. He's no longer with this team. He has nothing to do with this team. He's not representative of who they are at all because he was that sort of individual, give me the ball, I want to be the one to score. And it seems like Renard has sort of removed that identity and replaced it with we play for the team, we work really hard, we connect the passes, we press, we score goals, we win.
Including, so Taarabt I think is a good call, Boufal,
Yep,
is it? The
Sofiane Boufal.
Southampton player, who I don't think is quite as selfish as Thuram, but he's also very much I'm here to do flair. Let me do the flair. I'm not doing anything else kind of guy. Didn't work for Renard, so he's not on the roster.
It's another example, like we were just talking about, of leaving players off. And what was the Michael Cox tweet?
So Michael Cox, Zonal Marking, tweeted, this team I haven't watched for 2 years. The manager's definitely made a mistake leaving off this player from the roster. It's definitely him that's wrong.
Exactly. And it does feel like that is, I think they're outliers. I still think Rajan Angalan not being included maybe doesn't fall into that category, but I think there is...
the tweet's about you then.
Yeah, well, I think it's more so people basically look at the final roster, find the name that they think should have been there, and then write an article about how can you leave him off. I saw a lot of that with Sofiane Boufal. You can only
choose 23, that's why. Space is limited.
And you want them to fit your system
wedding,
and style.
Right? You only have so much budget.
Exactly. You made the cut, right? You were at my wedding.
Yes.
I'm joking. You were in the wedding.
I specifically remember.
Yeah.
Would you mind if I do my description of Hervé Renard?
No, please.
I feel like this is a thing that I've just inserted into every show, but I'm determined to do it. He looks like Fabio's brother.
Yep.
He looks like he is always in a magazine photo shoot, staring into the distance, strong jaw, long, like shoulder-length hair, sort of swept backwards, and always a tight dress shirt with the top 2 or 3 buttons undone.
Yes.
That is Morocco's coach.
Yes, those buttons are hanging on for dear life sometimes. He's gone real tight. Obviously, he is a tall, skinny man, so he can pull it off, but it's still, even with that, a few of those buttons are holding on for dear life.
So we've talked about the coach's handsomeness. We've talked about the playing...
Pretty much it, right? We're good to go?
We've talked about the playing style.
Yeah.
Shall we pick out some key players? Which players will you be keeping an eye on? And do you have any predictions about the team?
I sure do. Prediction number 1 is that Hakim Ziyech is how I'm going to pronounce it. I've heard it like Ziyech Hakim and many other ones, Ziyech as well. Ziyech. I predict he will get a big money move, mostly on the back of this tournament, even if that shouldn't necessarily be the case.
I think that's fair.
Okay. He's a 25-year-old midfielder born in the Netherlands. He was called up by Gus Hiddink to the Dutch squad in 2015. 7 youth caps for them, chose to play for Morocco. I think they are much the better for it, especially since the nickname that that I saw routinely was he's the Moroccan Iniesta.
The Moroccan Iniesta?
Yeah, pulls the strings from Morocco's attack. If you go back and look at their friendly they played against Serbia, he put the through ball through that led to the penalty, and then he had a lovely cross pass for Boutaïb, who's going to be their striker. He really does find these little spots and puts the ball exactly in that spot.
I absolutely agree. Also, super left-footed, which I find interesting, because sometimes he'll play on the right and do like a Mohamed Salah, Leo Messi, left-footed guy on the right wing thing. Sometimes he'll be on the left or through the middle, and he'll be sort of causing trouble that way.
Yep.
He's also my first prediction.
Yeah.
I believe that he will, Hakim Ziyech, how is pronouncing this? Hakim Ziyech?
Whatever you want to go with.
I'm going to go with Hakim Ziyech, will score a cheeky set piece.
Okay.
Because here's the thing I saw watching some footage of Hakim Ziyech. He does that thing where he'll line up as if he's going to cross a free kick. Everyone will be ready for the cross.
I saw this.
He will bang it near post.
Yep.
He will shoot when it looks like he's going to cross. He is going to take someone by surprise at this World Cup.
I think he did that again in that Serbia game. I think he did it from like 40 yards out from like the touchline. And then like turned and like smiled like, yeah, I had to.
And here's the other thing. I think we mentioned Thuram and Boufal and maybe the guys who there's too much selfishness and flair. I think Hakim Ziyech is the perfect balance between that willingness to try the unexpected and do the flair and entertain the fans, but also stick to Hervé Renard's pressing system, right? So he'll do the hard work off the ball to try and win the ball back, and he'll be somewhat sensible with the ball, but he'll also occasionally pull out the unexpected. That's why he's a player to watch.
Agreed. Yeah. Also a player to watch. Most assists in the Eredivisie for the past 2 seasons running. He was also Ajax's player of the year this season. I think my little tiny bonus prediction on him is that you will see in those stories linking him with places, he's already linked with Liverpool, Spurs, and Everton.
I saw
you're going to hear
because you can only go to the Premier League, right? That's
of course,
the only place you can go.
I think maybe he was linked with like Napoli as well, because everybody's going to be linked with Napoli this summer.
Yeah.
I think my bonus is that the transfer rumors will likely mention attitude problems or behavioral issues.
Really?
Yes, and completely without justification. But it's because he has made it very clear that he wants to move from Ajax.
Yes.
As have many other players. I think Ajax is not a place that a lot of players want to be right now for very different reasons than Sporting, but it still seems to be the case. I think he is one who said, I want to leave. And when you sort of are perceived as agitating for a move, I think then people might look and be like, oh, he dribbles a lot. Like, oh, maybe he is Adel Taarabt. And I think there'll be some very unfair analogies drawn.
That's interesting. Yes, so the precedent of Moroccan players acting that way could harm him, or be like a weird obstacle he has to overcome. Like when Americans go somewhere and they have to prove that they're not just all athletic and they don't understand soccer. Yeah,
and I know this isn't what you meant, but like not even a precedent. It's just that I think lazy people will say, like Morocco, I know Adel Tarabt. Oh, he wanted to move too. Okay, they're the same. And like you kind of like that's it. That's the connection you make, and I think that's slightly unfair. Very unfair.
Okay, I've got a second prediction.
Sure.
They will get caught playing out of the back.
Okay.
So part of this possession thing is they like to just ping the ball around. I've seen Mehdi Benatia, again, we mentioned he is the former Bayern Munich, current Juventus centre-back. He's a really sort of top-level centre-back. He's going to be the Morocco captain. I'd see him doing a lot of pointing when he has the ball, which like speaks to his authority, but also speaks to the idea that as they're playing the ball out of the back, not everybody is where they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And they're kind of doing this possession thing sometimes on the fly.
Yeah.
And this is why I call them sort of like a try-hard tiki-taka or a budget Spain, is because they're doing it without quite the refinement that you see Spain do it. And I think at some point they're going to get in trouble. They're going to try and play at the back and someone's going to take the ball off of someone.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And they'll concede a goal in that way. That's my specific prediction.
Gotcha. The only reason I hesitate is because my other prediction kind of goes against that, but it's mostly out of a like protest prediction. Is that
protest prediction?
Basically, Saiss and Benatia will concede the least fouls of any center back duo in the group. In this Group B.
Why?
Because I think, again, the lazy previews, last time I'll try to mention this one with Morocco, they're all sort of predicated on this idea they're going to be ultra defensive. They're going to do some like hack-a-shack style fouling to break up some of the more talented players. It's going to be a lot of like rough and tumble, and that's just not who they are. Mm-hmm. And really what it comes down to is this is a prediction that's like they're smarter than some of the previews seem to think, and they're better defensively than some of the previews might have you believe. I think you're right that I definitely saw some where it was like, ooh, that pass was not supposed to go where that pass went.
Yep. But I love them for it.
Yeah.
Right? I love their optimism, but I think someone will take advantage of it.
Yeah. So I think you're right, but I think it's drilled into them that like they have those kind of patterns of play and defensive responsibilities in a way that is more than just like foul him, be aggressive, everybody behind the ball. And on top of that, if they were everybody behind the ball, I think that actually lends itself to fouling more because it affords the other team when they win possession time and space to pick out the passes they want to make, and then you've got to react to that. Whereas Morocco, as you said, they're a bit more aggressive in the press. They kind of step, they cause problems as soon as they lose the ball, or at least they try to.
Oh, so the problem's cut off at the source.
Which means, you don't have as much time to be like, oh, that ball over the top, you play it in, oh, they're out of position, now there's got to be a foul. I think there's more fouls further up the field, basically.
Can I share this one thing, just to underline the idea that this is not a defensive team?
Yeah.
In the final game of African World Cup qualifying, Morocco went away to Ivory Coast.
Yep.
All they needed was a draw. They went all out, pass and press.
Yep.
They risked everything, and they won 2-0.
They did.
That is Morocco. So that's what makes me confident that even at the World Cup, on the highest, biggest stage with Portugal and Spain, they will stay true to the way Ronaldo wants them to play, which is dangerous, thrilling, and possibly effective.
Yes. And I want to say possibly effective because, to your point about that game, the first goal was scored by Nabil Darar, who will be starting as the right back. It's a cross into the box that ends up just going into the goal because nobody gets to it. And then I believe the second goal was scored from Mehdi Benatia, who off of a corner was kind of unmarked.
Yeah.
But I think, again, you could see those and think like, oh, kind of fluky goals. I would go the other way and say, like, no, you've got to put yourself in a position to get the opportunities, to get those opportunities.
The more I attack, the luckier I get.
There you go. Exactly. Well said. One thing to move into the... I'm sorry, do you have more predictions, or are we...
I don't. I had my Ziyech cheeky set piece.
Okay.
And also, they'll get caught playing out of the back.
Okay, and I've got Ziyech will get a big money move, and I've got Saiss and Benatia will concede the fewest fouls. I did want to say, though, with Nabil Darar, he is going to start at right back, I think, which means Achraf Hakimi, the
Real Madrid teenager.
Do you know where he plays for Real Madrid?
Real Madrid B.
Yeah. Well, what position? He occasionally plays for them. He's a right back. He is a right back. So I asked a couple different people who were in the know why they do this, because Nabil Darar can also play left back. So why would you switch them? And the answer is we have no idea. I think it basically, if I were to guess, I would say that Darar can also play as more of a winger and is more comfortable as a wing back by all accounts. So I do wonder if maybe if you have two players who would prefer to play on the right, you put the one there who is slightly less like defensively sound because at least he's more comfortable, and you put the one who's more defensively sound in a position where he will have to adapt, but at least you've got him in a less vulnerable position. Does that make sense?
I think so, yeah. I'll buy it.
As in, basically, if I've never played defense and now you have to have me, this isn't the case with him, but if I've never played defense and I have to play, you're going to put me at least on the side where my foot favors my play, versus you're going to put yourself, the proven defender, on the side where even if it's not your favorite foot, you still have the defensive experience to make up for it, whereas maybe I don't. That's what I'm saying.
Maybe that's what Ronaldo's
There we go. I doubt it, but I think they're both just very good, and he's trying to put on two good fullbacks.
So how about reasons to support Morocco? Why would US fans support Morocco?
Because I think they're the underdog that can actually make a run and surprise a few people. I have them getting out of the group.
So I also think they have been mentioned as a dark horse. I think a reason to support them is I would like to end the thing where being called the dark horse is the kiss of death.
Yep.
Right? So I want them to go far.
I think Grant Wall made the joke in 2014 that like every single team of the tournament at some point is a dark horse.
Yeah.
Outside of like the three favorites. So I think that's a reason to support them, and also it seems like they feed off of the energy of their supporters. It's the first time they've qualified since 1998. So I think there's a chance, even though Iceland will be at this World Cup, that their supporters are sort of the Iceland fans from Euro 2016.
Yes.
Like, I think they're going to be rowdy and loud and up for everything and cheering everything and trying to intimidate the opposition. So I think they're going to be fun supporters to have in the stadium.
As evidence, the TV commentator that I watched for a couple of the games I saw, he abandoned all pretensions of neutrality
nope.
when Morocco scored. He was all in.
Yep.
There's one guy I'd like to mention,
Sure.
who as a very sort of under the radar, no one's heard of him type pick. Ayoub El Kaabi.
Okay.
Familiar with this guy? So he plays in the Moroccan league for RS Berkane. He's one of those guys where his stats are going to stand out.
Yep.
8 caps for Morocco, 10 goals.
Yep.
8 caps, 10 goals. So he's in that
21
way,
goals in 38 matches in the domestic league.
Yeah. So speaking of domestic league, the reason he has 10 goals in 8 caps is that because he's a domestic league player, he was eligible to play in I believe it's called the Championship of African Nations, which people may not be familiar with this, but it's essentially the African Nations Cup. But you're only allowed to pick players who play domestically, none of your European superstars. So El Kaabi was their striker in that tournament, and that's where he scored the majority of his 10 goals in 8 games.
Gotcha.
But there were some good ones in there. There were some like scissor kicks and some long-range goals and that sort of stuff. I'm just interested to see if he can take that to the big stage, right?
Well,
Bring his to the A game.
I would say this: I don't think he starts.
Neither do I.
Yeah, so that's where it will be interesting to see if he gets minutes, and then if he gets minutes, how he capitalizes upon them.
Who do you have starting at centre forward?
Khalid Boutaib.
Same here.
Okay.
All 6'3" of him will start at centre forward.
That's the key point there. He is 31 years old, plays for Malatyaspor, got his first cap when he was almost 29.
Wow.
So he's
one of those guys.
He kind of came out of nowhere, he had a hat trick against Gabon in World Cup qualifying, but he's one who kind of had a bunch of different like second-tier clubs, really struck gold with Strasbourg in League 2, 20 goals in 34 games, got to move to Malatyaspor in Turkey where he continues to score. So he is not like the most pretty of strikers, but he gets the job done.
And I think as with, say, Kuka for Egypt, he's sort of there to service the wide attacking players, right? So you've got Boutaib as the centre forward.
Yep.
We've already talked a lot about Ziyech. He'll probably be on the left. On the right, Amrabat.
Yeah, buddy.
You would have seen Amrabat in the Premier League maybe a couple of years ago for Watford. He was in La Liga last year with Leganes.
I remember him from Galatasaray. He was real good.
Shaved head. Yep. He's all kind of like speed and muscle, and he will just bustle his way past people down the wings, but he will get to the end line and he will cut it back.
Yep.
So look out for Amrabat. He will knock you out the way on his way to the end line.
And then to bring it all home, I think Yunus Belhanda will be the kind of number 10 if they go with a 4-2-3-1.
Yes.
Mbark Boussoufa will be the vice captain, Karim El Ahmadi will be the other more holding midfielder.
Yeah, I see El Ahmadi and Boussoufa as
that was good pronunciation, by the way.
Thank you. As the more sort of, because they're both older guys, right? They're like 33, 34, as the more conservative, let's not go crazy guys who sort of allow the front four to really go wild.
Yeah. Agreed.
One guy we haven't mentioned, I've forgotten. It's
Amin Harit.
That's the guy, Amin Harit. I don't think he starts.
Yeah.
Amin Harit.
Yes.
He doesn't start, but I've seen him not starting but doing brilliant things in cameos for Schalke.
Yep.
I'm usually there to watch Weston McKennie, then I get 20 minutes of Amin Harit, and I'm sort of like, oh, this guy's got moves. This guy's really interesting. I see him coming off the bench and getting something done in this tournament.
Is he your young player who could get a move, or is he just your young player to watch?
Just a young player to watch, because I don't think he needs a move from Schalke. No. He just needs to break into the Schalke team. Fair?
I agree.
Yeah.
So that's why I had my player, youngster to watch, youngster who could get a move. It is Achraf Hakimi, who'll be playing left back. He's a right back for Real Madrid. His contract expires June 30th of this summer. So he has already said he's looking for a move. He has
play, right?
I've just learned this. He has an anti-shake clause in his contract.
What does that mean?
That's the vernacular, I guess it is, or whatever. It means that he has a minimum of a €30 million buyout clause, because Madrid were getting tired of teams with lots of money coming in and signing their young players. So they inserted clauses into all of their contracts with higher buyout clauses, because it used to be a player like him who was like, oh, you're 19, you might not break into the first team, you've played for Real Madrid B, your buyout clause is like $5 million. But then that's an easy one to trigger. So now they've tried to raise it to make it basically clubs can only come in and agree. Like, they can't undersell Madrid, basically.
I see.
Yeah,
so why is it anti-shake? Like shake or like a milkshake or what? What is
shake, as in
a moneyed team,
oil money. Yeah, exactly.
I see.
But he's out of contract, so that frees him up to pursue options elsewhere. So I think he will get a move anyway, but maybe a strong World Cup gets him a move to a bigger, more high-profile team.
Speaking of the World Cup, which we definitely have
also
been doing.
Hilarious that Real Madrid are mad about people poaching their young talent.
Yeah, right?
Asensio is not from Real Madrid's academy, put it that way.
Final reason to support Morocco. By the time the World Cup kicks off, they may be our vanquished World Cup bid host rivals.
Yeah.
We will not be in contest with Morocco.
So that's the only reason not to root for them if
to
they
host
win,
the 2026 World Cup.
Yep.
If they get those bidding rights, it's announced June 13th, right? There's going to be the vote. If Morocco gets the 2026 World Cup, I think US fans have every right to be bitter at Morocco, even if they're playing wonderful, dangerous, thrilling soccer throughout the tournament. We can be bitter and watch them.
You've got no arguments from me.
If they're not, just enjoy Morocco.
Yeah, just do.
Enjoy Morocco.
Because I think they're going to be enjoyable, and I also think their game against the team we're about to talk about is going to be one of the most important matches in this group.
Next up, the final team in Group B is Iran.
Yes.
Team Melli, which I thought was a wonderful nickname until I found out that Melli just means national.
That ruined it for you?
Yeah.
So what did you go with instead?
Well, so Team Melli is the nickname. I think the nickname should be the Monks.
Okay.
Because they have no interest in possession.
So are you going like exorcism here?
No, I'm going material possession.
Okay, there we go.
Possession of the ball. They are not interested in possessing the ball.
That makes more sense.
And they may be the one team in this group that is not interested in possessing the ball. So, under coach Carlos Queiroz, who has been their coach since 2011, who looks like a mean math teacher, by the way. You'll learn trigonometry under him, but you will not enjoy it because you'll learn it rote. They play what I'm going to call a 4-2-3-1, where they do not venture far forward.
Or 4-5-1, but yeah.
Or 4-5, yeah. Basically, it's 4-5-1, but there's always two defensive midfielders in front of the back four, right? So even that sort of clogs up the middle there. They don't sit back all the way. They come out to about halfway, and they don't press you in terms of trying to win the ball back. They just stand in your way, and it's very annoying. Yeah. They'll come all the way, but they won't commit to tackling you. They'll just try and slow you down, make it hard. I think Iceland did a similar thing at Euro 2016. When they win the ball back, they are mostly interested in going direct to probably their striker, Sadar Azmoun. And basically, he'll hold it up, he might flick it on, or they might go direct wide to one of their wingers. That's basically their only trick, is to move it around a bit and then just bang it long. That is what they want to do. They do not want to play pretty football through the middle like Spain or Morocco.
And that is why my team nickname is Crystal Palace. That's what I've gone with.
Why Crystal Palace?
Because both teams have a manager with Premier League and national team experience. Carlos Queiroz maybe not as a senior manager in the Premier League, but still it counts. They have a big target forward that they will aim the ball to. If he is not available, then they move the ball wide through their potential breakout star. For Crystal Palace, it's Wilf Zaha. For Iran, it's going to be Alireza Jahanbakhsh, is I think how you pronounce that
I think so too.
And basically, you've got that breakout star. Then they're defensively more or less solid with what you've talked about, that they do not let the ball through, so they try to shut it down. That seems like a hallmark of Roy Hodgson's Crystal Palace.
You're harsh on Roy Hodgson. I'm going to be harsh on
Well,
Carlos Queiroz.
how am I harsh? I'm saying he's defensively solid. They've got a big target striker. They've got attacking players out wide. They could get a result, and he's got lots of experience. That's not harsh. That's a factual statement of Crystal Palace that's shifted to make it fit within an Iran explanation.
Well, except, okay, off topic, but Crystal Palace played two wingers up front towards the end of the season.
Yeah.
They dropped Christian Benteke and played Wilfried Zaha.
When you drop Sadar Azmoun, then you can attack through the wings.
Which they will not.
Well, they will not. Yeah, that's true.
So here's the thing to remember about Carlos Queiroz. When Manchester United, when Alex Ferguson hired him as his assistant, I remember the story being that they hired Queiroz because they wanted someone to have a sort of frustrating defensive game plan for the Champions League, because Ferguson felt like Man United were a little too open in the Champions League. His whole job at Man United was to make them more boring, but more effective, and that's what he's doing for the Iranian national team.
And it's his second bite at the apple. As you said, he's been there since 2011. Second straight World Cup, which is not a thing that they could have said prior to this tournament.
True. Okay, so do you want to get into some players?
Sure.
Yeah.
I want to get into the reason why. I think basically I've seen a lot of people saying Portugal could get out of the group. I've seen people saying Morocco, and then I've seen people saying Iran could as well.
People say everyone could get out of the group. You know why? Every team could get out of the group. They all make it to the World Cup. Two teams go through.
But I guess this has been a long-term plan to explain why I think it's Morocco. And I think for Iran, there's a lot of question marks, more so than I have with other teams in this group. So you look at their roster, it's been trimmed to 24 players. Why 24? No one's entirely sure. You have to have 23, so why you wouldn't do what other teams have done and trim to 26, then you have 3 on standby. It seems like the reason why Carlos Queiroz does that is to make sure that everybody
on their toes
is always on their toes. But as a result, I get why you would do that.
He teaches trigonometry.
But man, he did it with Portugal in 2010. Ze Castro was sent home right before the tournament starts. But that can really go either way. I think
so June 13th, someone's going to be said, "Hey, here's your plane ticket."
I think that happened in the U.S. hockey team, like in the Miracle game. But it still is weird because it could work. It could be like, oh, yeah, that guy clearly didn't perform. He wasn't doing well in the locker room. He's got to go. But you could run the risk of like the glue chemistry guy is the one you send home because he doesn't fit, and suddenly you've disturbed the team.
Well, you've got 24 guys who haven't fully unpacked their suitcase.
Yeah. Then you've got no backup right back option. You've got a limited left back substitute and a guy who's played there but prefers to play on the wing. Jalal Husseini, who a lot of people thought would definitely be going. He's their most experienced defender. 36 years old, 116 caps. He was left off the roster. And then their captain is Ashkan Dejag. Is that how you would go with that one? How would you say that? Dejag?
Yes.
Okay. 31-year-old central midfielder for Nottingham Forest. 1 game, 14 minutes this season. 2 games, 114 minutes for Wolfsburg 2 last season. He's played 2 games in 2 years, Daryl.
Okay, I hear all that.
Yep.
But I'm going to raise you this.
Sure.
That, yes, some of these players like have unimpressive resumes, all that kind of stuff. But, and you can point out problems.
Oh, that wasn't no resume. That was they left off their most senior player and a guy who's played 3 games in 2 years.
All right, so maybe some of the guys aren't as impressive as what you just mentioned, right?
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, Queiroz has a defensive plan, and it's going to be boring. And I think you can trust him to be doing everything to make sure his defensive game plan happens.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I think it's all geared towards that, so it could work.
It could work,
yeah.
But I think there are reasons why they are not as strong as maybe they might seem on paper, and I think a big one of those is that they're holding midfielder. It's, by all accounts, Saeed Ezzatollah. He is there. It's Ezzatollah is how I have it written down. He is the one who kind of, again, is the midfield general. He slows things down. He speeds them up. He makes sure everyone is in the right position. He is suspended for the Morocco game. Red card on the final game of qualifying, or at least on his final game of qualifying. So he won't be there. The expectation is that Masoud Shojai will come in. He did play in the last World Cup, but he is still not that midfield general that they're used to. That's why I feel like Morocco get the slight edge in that game. And if Morocco win that one, then you've got Iran in a very tough position with those final 2 games.
Well, can we talk about some of the players who might impress if things do go well for Iran? And I mentioned his name earlier, but I think he's really worth talking about. The centre forward, Sadar Azmoun.
Yep.
Sardar Azmoun, Iranian centre forward. I think if Iran do well, he could have some really impressive moments.
Okay.
This guy's only 23. He plays for Rubin Kazan in Russia.
And he is one, disregard his club form, because he maybe didn't have a great team or season with this club, but by all accounts with the national team, he does the job.
He seems to have it all, right? So he's 6'1", but he's not about size and strength. He is about technique. And if you remember, Iran, as we said, they don't like possession football. They go long and they go direct. And it works because they go to Sardar Azmoun. Any ball they ping at him, it's almost like he can pluck it out of the air and bring it down and hold it up. And he's got a couple moves and then he'll lay it off. And I saw a lot. The classic, the first Iran goal I ever saw was long ball to Azmoun. He brings it down, lays it out to a winger, darts into the box, winger puts it in front of him, Azmoun scores.
Yep.
This is kind of what he's all about.
Yep.
He is. I saw him. I can't remember who it was. There was someone on Twitter called him one of the top 5 headers in the world.
Yep.
Top 5 headerers in the world.
Yeah.
Where it's not just about being tall. It's about when he makes a connection. He has the technique with his head to direct it wherever he likes.
He also has the Ronaldo hang. That
He
sort of like
does,
he
yes.
jumps maybe earlier than you think he should, but then somehow continues to be in the air when the ball comes in.
Zach Morris hang.
Sure.
You can see them doing a timeout thing as they jump.
And I say that because I also have a prediction about him, but why don't you go first with yours?
So my prediction is that Iran will score, Sardar Azmoun will score a goal involving a long direct ball.
Okay.
And either it's like straight into him and he goes and scores, or he holds it up or heads it on, but there'll be a direct ball and it will end with Azmoun scoring.
This is one that I don't really want to have to track myself, but my prediction for him is that he will not attempt a shot from further than 12 yards out. For the reasons that you've mentioned, is that basically I have him as an aerial threat with a poacher's instinct. He does win those
good, yeah.
He does win those balls. He does exactly what you said. He'll win the long ball. He'll play it wide. He'll get in the box. But he is not a guy who's going to be ripping shots from 18 yards out. He's not somebody who's going to stand you out, do la pausa, and then make a little bit of separation and shoot. He is going to win the headers, get on the end of a cross in the box, slide in and get to it at the back post.
He has got some moves though. I've seen him do a couple of step overs and get away from people.
He certainly does, but again, that's not what they're looking for him to do.
Yes,
within the system that Portugal play, he is all about the service into the box. 22 goals in 31 appearances backs that up. He is very good for the national team.
The absolute focal point of this team. Like the strategy of going forward is to him. The burden of goal scoring falls on him, and because he's only 23 and he's already in Europe, for me he's the breakout player who will probably get a big transfer. He could play for any Premier League team. Like maybe not start for some of the big teams, but he'd be like, for example, we talked last show about how Romelu Lukaku needs a number 9 backup at Man United. Instead of playing Marcus Rashford as an emergency centre forward, as in the FA Cup final, United would be much better off if they had Sardar Azmoun as the Lukaku backup. You know what I'm saying? So he could do a job anywhere for a bigger team, or if it was Everton or West Ham, he could possibly be the starting striker.
Okay, I wanted to disagree with you, but I think you might have a point there. It does feel like an Everton move, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Cenk Tosun wouldn't be thrilled, but you're not wrong, Daryl. That's a pretty decent shout. Do you want more predictions from me, or have you got another one?
I always want more predictions from you.
All right, this one you might not like. I have one that Iran will concede 2 or more goals after the 75th minute.
Why so?
In their 3 games, because 2 main reasons. One, the one I mentioned is Dejaga. How would you go with it?
Dejaga.
I feel like you've just been trying to not say his name. For what I mentioned, that if he is going to be one of your central midfielders tasked with helping possession, seeing out the game, to have played 2 games or 3 games in 2 years.
By helping possession, do you mean bang it forward to the centre forward?
Yeah, well, okay, but doing anything for a 90-minute game when you have played 3 games in 2 years is going to be a tough ask.
Or you're super well rested.
Sure, but that can definitely be the case. You're right, he's super well rested. Doesn't mean fitness-wise he's super well rested.
Yeah.
So I think he is going to be a fitness concern, so you're going to have to bring him off. You're going to have other players, like I mentioned, Saeed Ezzatolai, who's going to be suspended, so you're going to have people deputizing. And I feel like you can hold on and fight, but if you don't have the conditioning, and that is another common criticism of domestic-based players for Morocco or for the, I think they have 2 from the Qatar League, is that you don't don't get a lot of fitness.
Do you mean for Iran?
Yes, excuse me.
Yeah.
I said Morocco, didn't I? For Iran, you have a lot of players based in the Gulf Super League, I think it was. I forget what their domestic league is. I apologize. But you have a lot of players based there. You have 2 in Qatar, like I said. You don't get a lot of fitness in there. That's not necessarily the way those leagues operate. And as a result, you don't have the fittest team capable of playing 90 minutes or 120 minutes if the situation requires.
And if they have a game that goes 120 minutes, they've done well.
This is true,
because it means they've got themselves out of the group stage.
Yep.
Okay, my second prediction is
the Persian Gulf Pro League. I have it in my notes. I apologize.
And I'll bet a lot of the players play for Persepolis.
Not as many as you'd think.
No?
So it's 24 players on the roster, as I said, 10 from the Persian Pro League, 2 from Qatar, 12 from Europe. You've got a decent amount of Persepolis, but Esteghlal is the other one that's very much represented within this team.
Okay. My second prediction is about Alireza Jahanbakhsh.
Yep.
Is, I believe, how we're pronouncing it. So Jahanbakhsh is 2-footed attacking winger, and he can dribble past you on either side.
Yeah.
And for that, he is terrifying.
Yep.
He plays for RZ, I believe. I've looked at a lot of sort of dribbly wide players over the course of these previews. But he seems like the guy that can go either way, and he'll be the one serving those crosses and passes into Sardar Azmoun. I kind of like him. I think he's a really impressive player, but he also spends a lot of time fighting to win direct balls himself, right?
Yep.
Even though that's not his skill set, because he's not a centre forward. Sometimes Iran, instead of doing the sort of possession soccer, if the ball straight forward to the centre forward is not on, they will just bang it out to the right and like expect him to run after it, chase it, fight it, right? So it's a tough old thing, but it's going to leave him, if he gets there, one-on-one with players quite a lot. That skill where he can go to your left, he can go to your right, I think he's going to get fouled a lot. And I don't think he minds getting fouled a lot, because then they get to cross the ball into the centre forward, right? So I think Alireza Jahanbakhsh will draw a yellow card in every game he plays. All 3 group stage games, he will draw yellow cards from defenders, because people will be bringing him down. Because he'll be doing it on the counter-attack, or he'll be just constantly running at people, or he'll be fighting with people. 3 yellow cards coming to his opponents.
And to further evidence for that one, or my at least theoretical evidence, would be that, as we've talked about, they're going to be very defensive, they're going to be very rigid, but that means when they break, they're going to try to do so at pace, and they're going to try to frustrate opposition, invite them to have too many defenders forward, and then you exploit that space. So I absolutely see a situation where in the 70th minute, Portugal really press a few more numbers forward than they should have. He's on the break, somebody pulls him back and gets that professional yellow.
Yep, so he can line up those yellow cards. Maybe he'll take them home as trophies.
I think with that in mind, I do wonder where home will be for him, because he is a player who I think absolutely is going to get a lot of attention going into this tournament and coming out of this tournament. He's performed exceptionally well in the Dutch league. I think he's got a move coming this summer.
Didn't someone say he was maybe a shout for player of the season in the Netherlands this year?
If they did, then they're correct, because everything that I saw from him backed up the idea that he is very, very good in terms of goal scoring, very, very good in terms of his technical dribbling and overall pace, and is just all around a very good player that could definitely spruce up some attacking lineups.
Spruce up, I like the phrase spruce up. So I think what we've really hit on is the 2 players to watch when you're watching Iran. Sardar Azmoun, ball's going to go direct to him, he's going to be very good in the air, and Alireza Jahanbakhsh, the winger who can dribble at you at pace. Those are your 2 names to watch.
Indeed. Saeed Ezzatullahi. I've done it differently.
Don't try watching him in the first game.
Do not. And that's where I would say he is really in an unfortunate position, because I think if he had a strong game, if he were eligible to play against Morocco and had a strong game, he is 21 years old. He plays for Amkar in Russia. I can't claim much familiarity with them, but he's a player who, if he does get the kind of attention of, he really is holding it down in that midfield for Iran, he is the one who makes the system work, maybe he's another one who gets a look from a more known club team.
Fair enough. Final thing before we move on to reasons to support, I do want to give a shout out to Reddit user Arshia42. Arshia42, who wrote a wonderful Reddit preview, Reddit Soccer, our Soccer Iran World Cup preview. Not only was it full of information, it was kind of just a joy to read, because it was funny as well.
It was.
So well done to Arshia42.
Reasons to watch them. I almost had this as a prediction, but
reasons to support them.
Well, yeah, I guess so. But I was going to say, I had it as a prediction. It doesn't really fit as a prediction, but I think Morocco versus Iran will be one of the most interesting, exciting games to watch, at least from this group. And I feel like that's not a thing that most people will necessarily have expected, but they both, I think, know they have to win that first game because you really, 1 point there, it sets you up where you have to then get a result against Portugal and Spain or get a win against one of them. That's pretty difficult. So I think both are going to be coming out to try to get all 3 points in this one. On top of that, I believe earlier this month it was that they cut diplomatic ties between the two countries. So there is no diplomatic relations between Iran and Morocco.
Because of an upcoming World Cup game?
No, it was not that one. It was because, looks in his notes, it was because the Moroccan government alleges that the Iranian government was funding like a separatist movement within Morocco, so they were not too thrilled with that one.
All right.
So I think as I said, you're already going to have very rowdy fans from both sides. We saw that from Iran in 1998 as well as 2014. Morocco from qualifying. But yes, Tehran allegedly supporting a pro-independence group in Western Sahara is why you no longer have diplomatic relations. It's going to be rowdy on and off the field.
The one reason I would give for US fans to support Iran is because success on the field for Iran gives some people relief from an oppressive regime.
Sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And also maybe it's an advert for the longevity of having a head coach there for a good old while, right? Mm-hmm. If Queiroz, we don't like his system, but his system works enough to get them to 2 World Cups in a row. We've described it. It's not pretty, but it seems to work.
It works.
If you can sort of get the most, exploit the talents of a talented player like they do, it could work.
You're forgetting the very obvious reason here, Daryl.
What's the very obvious reason?
Obviously because Carlos Queiroz managed the Metro Stars. What more do you need to know?
More.
Yeah.
More.
All right, fine.
So there you go.
So demanding, that Daryl Grove.
That was your Group B preview. Have we left anything off the table here, Taylor? Anything else you want to talk about Group B?
No, other than I know this isn't that surprising given that we've previewed 2 groups, but this is so far the group that I'm most excited to watch, like literally every single game. I don't think there's a bad game in this one. There will be bad soccer played. I don't think Portugal-Iran is going to be the prettiest game of soccer you've ever seen, but there's going to be so many different little things to watch for and keep an eye on.
Even that one's interesting, right? Because they're the 2 most conservative teams in terms of their style of play. That will be the game where it will be on Portugal to come out of their shell a little bit because of what Iran do. So that will be the challenge there. That will make it interesting, right? Against Morocco and against Spain, Portugal will not have to come out of their shell. They will just stick to their 4-1-3-2, bang some crosses in and see what happens because that could work. Against Iran, it's not going to work because there'll be too many defenders to try and do that against. Yes. So every configuration brings some entertainment. But I'm going to call Morocco-Spain is going to be the game of this group. Because it will be 2 teams pressing, possessing, going at each other.
The only thing
high risk.
The only thing I don't agree with you on is if they're both in a position where, say, Morocco. Like, I think theoretically I agree, but if Morocco beat Iran in the first game and get a draw against Portugal, I'm not necessarily sure how much they're going for an all-out win versus 1 more point, and we definitely are going through.
I think they only know one way to play. Like I said, when they went to the Ivory Coast, they only needed a point away to the Ivory Coast. They just went all out and went for it.
And then my other point would be that if Spain already have 6 points and know they're through, maybe that's where you see the Spain B team and they rest some of the regulars.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that you're right. I'm hoping it is a game where they both are trying to get that result, and thus you see the best of both teams.
Everybody's always trying to get a result.
It depends on what the result is, but yes.
All right, Taylor Rockwell. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today about World Cup Group B.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, please share this show. Please share the link, TotalSoccerShow.com/World Cup. Please spread the word about the Total Soccer Show World Cup Group previews. Please buy your tickets via SeatGeek, code is TSS, and get your DNA results via Ancestry. Ancestry.com/DNA. TSS20 is the discount code. We'll be back on Thursday to talk Champions League final preview. Until then, it's ciao from us.